Last November, I had a chance to drive the GR Corolla at Vancouver Island Motorsport Circuit, which is pretty much the perfect track for a car like this one. I had a whole video planned, and then, well, just check it out for yourself. That's right, folks, a bad microphone meant pretty much everything I shot that day was a waste, which is hugely disappointing. I should also point out that it has nothing to do with video producer extraordinaire Will Johnson, who wasn't with me that day, but he's here with me today, and that's why we decided to make things right. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. It took way longer than I hoped to share the track footage with you guys, so I am so excited to kind of combine the two, the stuff from today as well as this stuff from VIMC. But before we do, a quick word from the GR Corolla's sponsors, chiropractors everywhere. And it's not that the ride is uncomfortable per se. It's also not surprising that this thing is so tightly sprung, but it does not have adaptive dampers, and it means the ride can be pretty jarring, especially on longer trips. You are going to notice it really jostling you around, really short rebound strokes. Just kind of takes its toll. I could see it being a problem over the long term, but obviously on a winding road or on a racetrack, it makes this thing absolutely incredible. It's so sharp, it handles so well, it is great. I don't know if you saw or heard that. Not a very big bump, but it really reverberated through the cabin and probably through the camera too. That is the problem with the ride quality, but that is a small nit to pick with this car. Now, when you take a look at the Honda Civic Type R, as well as the Volkswagen Golf R, the two cars that this thing competes with so directly, both of those do have adaptive dampers. So that's a bit of a competitive advantage for both of them compared to this Toyota. But again, getting back to VIMC, that is such a tight, twisty track. And this is such a slithery little car. They really are a match made in heaven. But even on a winding road like this one, this car is so much fun. I'm sure it would also be fun on a track with big speed potential like CTMP, but really a small one like VIMC, it allows you to kind of experience more of the car. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I always felt like the regular Corolla hatch had all kinds of potential for fun. Yes, it was hidden below the surface, but only barely so. So slapping all these go fast parts to it, unsurprisingly proved that hypothesis to be true. Here we go, a chicane. I mean, this thing is pretty crazy. It's got a really stubby wheelbase. It's shorter than the Civic Type R's, but it's track. So the distance between its wheels, it's almost as wide, and it makes this thing stay so firmly planted on the road. You can really feel it. And of course, these Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, I think they are, they really do help. You get better ones on that super exclusive Morizo Edition. I think only 9 or 10 of them came to Canada. That is one of the cars that I drove at the track, which was a cool experience. And it does make more torque. It makes 295 pound-feet versus 273 pound-feet of torque in the rest of the lineup, including this core version, the base trim I'm driving, because it has more boost. This one maxes out at, I think it's 26.2 PSI, whereas that one, it's 27.3, something like that. Anyways, that's not the part that you notice between the two cars. What you notice, the extra lightness as well as the rigidity, because a whole bunch of weight has been shed. Something like, I don't know, 110 pounds, in that neighborhood anyways. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. That thing has no back seat. Even the motors for the rear doors, they have been removed, so you can't open them, but it doesn't matter because nobody can sit back there anyways. But you have a bunch more chassis bracing, and that's what you really notice on that track especially. But this one, it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing much. And if anything, us Canadians, we do have a big advantage because limited slip differentials, they are standard, both front and rear. Whereas in the US, they only come in the Circuit Edition, the mid-grade trim, as well as that Morizo. So we do have something going for us here. And those really do help too. So does this variable all-wheel drive system that I absolutely love. So keep in mind the Civic Type R, that is front wheel drive. It does a really great job of getting its power down, but this one is all-wheel drive like the Golf R. Like I said, it's a variable system. So that means the default setting is 60-40 front to rear. It sends 60% of the torque to the front wheels and 40% to the back ones. But then you turn this little dial here on the console and there's a rear bias setting that sends only 30% to the front and 70 to the rear. Yes, on a loose surface like gravel, the back end will step out on you just a little bit, but it's cool because you can feel it kind of hunkering down in the back, but the front wheels do claw for traction. It is noticeable. And then there's also a track mode that's perfectly 50-50 distribution front to rear. Both of those, the 60-40 and the 50-50, they feel pretty neutral. Obviously, shutting off traction control changes things, makes it a little more chaotic, but overall, it's just a very good system. And I do really like that 30-70 split. I also like the different drive modes, although I do have to say there's a custom mode. So there's sport, normal, eco, and then there's custom, so you can change a few settings, but only the powertrain, steering, the climate control. You don't get any other settings, especially because there are no adaptive dampers. So that is a bit of a shame. Now, we talked about torque earlier, but we did not talk about horsepower. I also want to say it's hilarious. Not that this thing is any sort of laughing matter, but it is absolutely absurd to me that a 3-cylinder engine can reliably put down so much power. This thing makes 300 horsepower. Yes, that is less than the Civic Type R. That thing makes 315, but it also does it with one more cylinder than this one. This one is also only mated to a 6-speed manual transmission, the way the car gods intended, and it is really good. And just like the regular Corolla hatch, there is auto rev matching, which is pretty cool because if you can't heel and toe, it will do it for you, or if you're just getting used to it. It's nice, there's this little button down here by your left knee, turn it on or off, and you can use it. It is very good, and so is this 6-speed manual and the clutch. Well weighted and gated, perfectly matched to the car. Everything about this works really well together. Something else I like, it's not quite as hardcore as some of its predecessors. Yes, that Morizo Edition is a little more hardcore. That's a track special, but what I mean is if you take a look at the WRX STI that is no longer available, sadly, well, that thing, driving it normally kind of felt like a chore. The clutch is really heavy. As one of my colleagues used to say, kind of drove like a tractor, whereas this one almost feels like a regular Corolla hatch when you're driving it casually. But then when you don't want to drive it casually and you want to have some fun, this thing is insane. Now, yes, there are constant reminders of the otherworldly capabilities of this car. The exhaust note tends to drone when you're just cruising around. Yeah, that ride I talked about. The clutch, maybe a little heavy, but again, it does drive normal-ish. One downside can be called just a little bit predictable. I like the Civic Type R because it feels a little more raw this time around. This one definitely feels a little more point and shoot, but of course that has its pros and its cons. Predictability can be good or bad in a car like this. There's also all kinds of potential that you can't, or at least shouldn't, explore out on public roads. That is what racetracks are for. So that predictability can come in handy. It is going to get you out of some sticky situations, but I do like kind of the duality of this car. Feature count, so-so. It's got heated seats, this touchscreen, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The asking price for this base version, not so bad. It's like $45,500, but that is the MSRP, and it says nothing about the asking prices out there these days. People are tacking on, I don't know, $15,000, $20,000 to the sticker price, which is just insane to me. Now, that is in Canada. That's at the time we're recording this video, so obviously that could change for better or for worse. There's also no word on exactly how many of these are coming to Canada. Toyota is being very tight-lipped, but some online rumors suggest it is in the low double digits, and that is just so disappointing because this is just such a good car. To recap, I like how fun the GR Corolla is to drive, its great manual transmission, and the variable all-wheel drive system. I don't like that it's so hard to find one, and the asking prices they're commanding once you do. The astronomical asking prices combined with the limited supply means one of the greatest cars of this era is going to go largely unappreciated. And it's not as if other generational sport compacts have been available in massive quantities, but that fact doesn't make it any less disappointing that this one in particular is going to remain so elusive. But that means those of you out there who are lucky enough to get your hands on one have a responsibility to the rest of us, and that's to drive it. Trust me, you won't regret it.